would have been presentable with an AAC device. Communicating is a core function of being human. We should not balance the merit of whether or not access is deserved based on a financial impact to insurance companies. Please make sure that no more lives are lost and no more trauma is caused. Thank you for supporting Senate File 1101.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson. Questions from the committee? Senator Wickland.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the statements by the testifiers really conveyed what I would want to convey. I will add that I did hear from speech language pathologists who work in schools, and many of them wrote that they were found it very challenging that they would be able to offer access to a device in a school setting, and they could see the progress that a student would make having access to the device, but then the child would have to go home and they couldn't take it home with them. And so I just think that this is really unevenness and unfairness in coverage that is really preventing kids from leading their fullest lives and leading healthy lives. And this is a coverage that we should require. So thank you. And I also just say I was really happy to be able to present today with two constituents. The one, Danny, brought the bill idea forward to me, and I really appreciate that. And Joe is also a constituent of mine who lives in Richfield. So thank you.
Wonderful. The question is on the motion of Senator Wickland that Senate File 1101 as amended be recommended pass and referred to the Committee on Health and Human Services. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay. My apologies for the early gavel. The motion passes. Senator McQuaid. Senator McQuaid, you can close us out with Senate File 1961, which is in front of us. You have an A5 authors amendment. Senator Seeberger offers the A5. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is adopted. Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, thank you so much for agreeing to hear Senate File 1961, the Minnesota Building Families Act. The Minnesota Building Families Act is a simple bill with an inarticulable impact. It would require insurance to cover the cost of infertility treatments. So many Minnesotans are waiting and excited to start or grow their families, but cannot because their health insurance doesn't cover the cost of the diagnosis and treatment of infertility. Families cash out their 401ks, take out second mortgages on their homes, max out credit cards, take out loans, even have bake sales just to have a child. Extreme financial stress is not the way any family should be welcoming their child into the world. The Minnesota Building Families Act would lower cost sharing and provide access to infertility diagnosis and treatment for the 1 in 7 couples dealing with infertility in Minnesota. For the last 3 years, I've had Minnesotans from across the state call, email, stop by my office, begging for one thing: please pass this bill. I'm so proud that this bill is bipartisan, and for all of the bipartisan work that has gone into it. I want to thank my Republican colleagues, including Senator Duckworth, who is on this committee, who have co-authored this bill with me. We may not agree on every issue, but we agree that Minnesotans who want to start their families should be able to. Requiring insurance to cover a medical diagnosis and treatment of infertility is not only the logical thing to do, it's the right thing to do. I urge the committee to support this bill today, and with it, the couples and individuals across Minnesota, my family included, who need these services. If we want Minnesota to be the best state to raise a child, we have to be the best state to start a child. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator McQuaid. Mariah Gran, please introduce yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Chair Klein and committee members. My name is Mariah Gran, and I am here as a patient advocate and the president of the Minnesota Building Families Association, which educates and advocates for access to fertility care in Minnesota. Before I begin, I'd like to propose some hypothetical questions to the committee. For those of you who are parents, how much of your financial future would you risk for your child? And for those of you who dream of becoming parents, how much of your financial future would you risk to make that dream a reality? Now I want you to imagine yourself sitting at your kitchen table, surrounded by medical bills. Your heart is heavy, and every day you wonder how you will make your ends meet. You ask yourself, how much more can I sacrifice? At what point would I be forced to give up? And in that moment, Giving up would mean the devastating reality of never getting the chance to meet the child you dreamed of, the child you have fought for. This isn't hypothetical for many Minnesotans. It's reality. In Minnesota, 1 in 6 people experience infertility. More than 186,000 people. Half of them are men, half of them are women. Nearly 10% of cancer patients, about 8,000 Minnesotans, may need fertility preservation to build a family. My own infertility story includes 7 miscarriages, 2 rounds of IVF, and the crushing financial burden of paying out of pocket because my insurance didn't cover fertility treatment. My husband and I took out a second mortgage, accessed retirement funds, and our family hosted a fundraiser to bring my daughter into this world. She turned 5 this week, and she made sure to tell me that I better let everybody know she's 5, not 4. We still have 2 embryos left, but without insurance coverage, we can't afford to add to our family. Every day I live knowing the family I dream of could be mine if only I had insurance coverage. My story is not unique. Without fertility insurance, families drain savings, max out credit cards, and take out second mortgages, all for the chance to dream of parenthood. But there's hope. Senate File 1961 offers the solution. Studies show that when insurance covers IVF, health outcomes improve for mothers and babies. Healthcare costs go down. In the 25 other states across this country that have passed fertility coverage laws, there has been little impact on insurance premiums. A 2021 Mercer study of over 450 employers found 90% of employers offering fertility care coverage, including IVF, saw no significant increase in medical costs. Fertility coverage doesn't just save families financially, it saves lives too. Patients in states with fertility insurance see less risks due to multiple births and the need for costly NICU care. Fertility treatment is healthcare, not a luxury. A recent study by the Women's Health Research and Action Center shows 65% of Americans support mandated insurance coverage for fertility treatment. Even state employees and legislators, such as yourself here today, have fertility insurance coverage. The families you represent deserve the same access. Without fertility insurance, families pay out-of-pocket costs for that, for the insurers, but insurers get to negotiate at lower rates. The burden falls entirely on families, not insurers who benefit. Today we stand united, patients, providers, and employees, many of whom are behind me here today wearing orange, demanding action. This bill is pro-family, bipartisan, and ready to pass. So I asked a question earlier. How much would you risk to make your dream of parenthood a reality? Perhaps your children or grandchildren will face that same question one day. Senate File 1961 gives you the chance to act now, so they never have to ask, how much of my financial future can I risk to become a parent? Please pass Senate File 1961 and give Minnesota families a reprieve they desperately need. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grahn. Dr. Khan, please introduce yourself and proceed.
Thank you. Dear Chair Klein and committee members, thank you so much for this opportunity to testify in front of you today. My name is Zarak Khan, and I'm a professor of OBGYN and chair of the Division of Reproductive Endocrinology and Infertility at the Mayo Clinic. But I'm also sitting here in front of you because I wouldn't be here had my parents not had access to fertility coverage in the UK almost 40-some years ago. I won't give you my age yet. It is likely that everyone in this room knows at least one soul that has had or continues to struggle with infertility. Infertility affects 1 in 6 individuals globally and 1 in 7 in Minnesota. Yet too many Minnesotans pay monthly insurance premiums for plans that will cover neither the diagnosis nor the standard treatment of this disease. And yes, I say it is a disease defined by the WHO and not a luxury treatment. Even though, more importantly, the insurance plan will not cover costs for cancer patients to preserve their ability to have future children, young patients, when diagnosed with cancer, have a very short window of freezing egg and sperm, and we really need to act in those scenarios as well. Really, most of the patients that I see don't require IVF or advanced fertility treatments, but my patients are mortified to step foot into my clinic due to the cost associated with that. It is these delays that I fight against every single day, these delays that destroy my patients' dreams of family building, and these delays that will ultimately increase their cost of invasive treatments if their treatment is delayed. Conversely, when IVF is needed, outcomes are better when people have insurance coverage. Simply put, insured patients really resort to single embryo transfers, and this lowers multiple births, which generates huge cost for insurance companies and leads to healthier moms and babies. Again, our mantra, healthy moms and babies. Without requiring insurance coverage, the ability to build a family depends on the ability to pay, and I witness this inequity every single day of my work. My colleagues that have insurance coverage around the country for their patients really get to treat medicine and do medicine in order to serve the patient's need rather than be dictated by insurance coverage or mandates. And that is something I would really want for my patients as well. The ability to treat a disease should not depend on where you live or are stationed at. It is time now to pass the bill. For those struggling with infertility or facing a cancer diagnosis, further delays would mean even more Minnesotans not realizing their dreams of parenthood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. Can Rebecca Delahunt and Maggie Hanji please come forward? Welcome to the table, Ms. Delahunt. Please introduce yourself. Proceed.
Chair Klein and members of the committee, thank you so much for having me today. My name is Rebecca Delahunt, and I work as Director of Public Policy with Minnesota Family Council. SF 1961 would mandate all health plans in Minnesota cover assisted reproduction services, including, based on our reading of Subdivision 5, most likely surrogacy contractual arrangements. The language of Subdivision 5 requires that health plans must not limit, quote, any fertility services based on an enrollee's participation in fertility services provided by or to a third party. The process of surrogacy is complex. Eggs and sperm are sourced either from the person or people who will raise the child, called the intended parents, IPs, or they can be purchased from a seller, otherwise called a donor. Eggs and sperm are fertilized into multiple embryonic lives and often graded by quality, viability, and other characteristics. The surrogate, or so-called gestational carrier, the woman carrying the baby, will hand over the baby immediately upon delivery to the IPs. Most surrogacy arrangements are paid, meaning that the surrogate is paid for renting her body, and she must follow contractual requirements on medication, diet, lifestyle, etc. Surrogacy always involves the intentional stripping of a child from the only mother the baby has known, a serious injustice to these children. Although surrogacy agencies may require a background check of IPs, there is no federal or Minnesota law requiring a background check. Foreign nationals come to the U.S. for surrogacy arrangements. Upon birth, the child becomes a citizen under the 14th Amendment. The Journal of Fertility and Sterility reports that Chinese foreign nationals are the largest proportion of foreign intended parents in the studied period from 2014 to 2020. Relative to U.S. IPs, international IPs are more likely to be male and over 42 years old. A Wall Street Journal article in your packets from December 2025 titled, "The Chinese Billionaires Having Dozens of U.S.-Born Babies Via Surrogate," reports on Chinese foreign national males getting tens and even working toward 100 children via U.S. surrogates. Surrogacy costs vary, but after compensation, agency fees, IVF embryo creation and transfer, legal fees, and other costs, the cost can be $100,000 to $200,000. Minnesota taxpayers should not pay for the intentional creation of children to separate them from the only mother the baby has known. Surrogacy is not protected in Minnesota statute, and we argue that it should not be, but it is notable that this bill likely mandates insurance coverage of an extra statutory practice. Mandating insurance coverage of surrogacy is not good public policy for Minnesota. Please vote no on SF 1961. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Delahunt. Ms. Hanji, please introduce yourself and go ahead.
Thank you. Chair Klein and members of the committee, my name is Maggie Hangy, and I'm the Assistant Director for Family Policy at the Minnesota Catholic Conference, the public policy voice of the Catholic Church in Minnesota. We're speaking today in opposition to SF 1961. Please vote no. Facing infertility is a devastating reality. We acknowledge the pain that couples experience and have great compassion for their circumstances, but we must recognize that children are gifts. They are not commodities to which we have an automatic right. Once we look past the emotional appeal, we face difficult ethical dilemmas. More children are killed at IVF clinics than at Planned Parenthood in a given year. Some reports say that up to 90% of embryos created are never born. Many are discarded as medical waste, donated to science, or left frozen for an indefinite amount of time. To determine which of the embryos will have the best chance at life, preimplantation genetic testing is often used. In 2020, this was used in about 50% of the time. PGT is problematic as it can lead to modern-day eugenics. We can now create designer babies with the characteristics and sex desired by their parents. This practice also comes with low success rates. Nationally, 37% of assisted reproductive technology cycles resulted in a live birth. Put the other way, 63% of all cycles fail. And the cost is staggering. Each IVF cycle costs between $15,000 and $30,000, and most couples need more than one cycle because the underlying issue causing the infertility has not been properly treated. Thus, couples can easily spend upwards of $100,000 and may never achieve a successful pregnancy. We should not be using taxpayer dollars to coerce people, including religious employers, into paying for a practice that is not good medicine or sound ethics. One of the more alarming aspects of this bill is that it would allow for taxpayer funding for commercial surrogacy. Surrogacy creates a marketplace where wombs become commodities and children become products. It exploits women and intentionally strips a child of the only mother he or she has known for 9 months. This has detrimental effects for all involved. We should certainly not be funding this practice without properly vetting it through the legislative process. When discussing infertility, it is important to remember that infertility is not the disease in and of itself. It's a symptom of an underlying condition like a hormonal imbalance, blocked fallopian tube, or endometriosis. Pushing couples towards IVF and related treatments without first treating the underlying cause of fertility is problematic. A better path forward is by promoting and covering restorative reproductive medicine, or RRM. RRM works with the woman's body to diagnose and treat the underlying health conditions that may be inhibiting the infertility. It's a tailored approach for each person based on his or her specific needs. RRM is often cheaper than IVF and more successful. To that end, we ask you to support instead SF 4166, which is carried by Senator Coleman. Couples deserve better than being funneled down the assisted reproductive path. We should not misplace our compassion by trying to play God and creating children in a lab, and in some cases, separating them from one or both biological parents. Please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hangy. Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. I would like to offer the A6 amendment.
Senator Duckworth offers the A6 amendment. It is distributed. Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the complexity and differing perspectives regarding this issue. I had a conversation with the bill author regarding this amendment before. Essentially, it provides an exemption for religious reasons to organizations that would qualify to not have to be mandated to provide this coverage. We'd be happy to have Senator McQuaid give her thoughts as well if she would like to. Thank you.
Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Duckworth. We did have a great conversation. I would accept this as a friendly amendment.
Further discussion on the A6. Senator Duckworth. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A high compliment. I have a question for the amendment author. It's my understanding that this would cover religious exemptions, but does it cover perhaps broader moral, ethical objections that might not be tied to a specific religious organization?
Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The way it's drafted, it specifically accounts for religious objections. Open to conversations or tweaks to language or verbiage in the future. But when I look at line 1.24, 1.23, 1.24, it says on account of religious objections.
Senator Rasmussen. Further discussion on the bill. Oh, we should vote on the A6. All in favor of the Duckworth Amendment A6, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is adopted. To the bill. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to start off by saying I have much empathy and compassion for families experiencing infertility. One of the questions I had was for actually Dr. Khan, if you wouldn't mind coming up. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Dr. Khan. And I just want to say, I appreciate the important work that your medical team does, the OBGYNs at Mayo Clinic, and I just want to express my gratitude. One question I had is, we've had concerns brought up here today about, surrogacy, where you might have an individual who could go to a surrogacy agency and say that they would like to get 10 girls or 20 boys, or having those types of commercial arrangements. And I just wondered, as a physician, as a medical practitioner, do you think that there is an ethical line in this line of work, where whether it's selecting on gender, whether it's on having an individual who is putting an order in with a surrogacy agency, do you see any ethical lines that we should be concerned about within this industry?
Thank you, Senator Rasmussen, for your question. And I think it's a really interesting one. A part of what we do in the reproductive medicine sort of area, every single thing has an ethical dilemma, and we have ethical advisory boards. We have our practices governed by ethical advisory boards as well. And as far as the question of sex selection comes between selecting male versus female embryos, the ASRM actually has a pretty strong statement against that. We do not perform sex selection, actually, in my practice as well. And there's some ethical guidelines and sort of committee opinions regarding the practice of that. As far as the use of gestational carriers are concerned, gestational carrier use actually is a fairly medical, straightforward answer. So we use gestational carriers in scenarios where the couple is without a uterus, or if there is a medical contraindication to pregnancy. And a medical contraindication to pregnancy really defines as the risk of mortality increased by 20% or so. So I think that as far as the work that we do is laid on sort of very strong evidence, and there is really good governing bodies that really govern that practice for us.
Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I really appreciate Senator Rasmussen, your question, and Dr. Khan for kind of going down the road. But this bill actually doesn't deal with surrogacy at all. There's nothing in this bill that would cover surrogacy agreements, legal contracts, compensation to surrogates. This bill is specific to a diagnosis of infertility and treatment of that infertility for a person. And you can't have your insurance cover somebody else. And by definition, surrogates are not infertile. And so their own insurance would actually not cover it. So I understand that it's a heated topic. I totally get that. I had a bill to put regulations into law around surrogacy contracts in the state of Minnesota last session. Happy to talk about that with anybody at any time, but this bill really isn't about that.
Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my reading of the bill is different than the bill authors. And I would just point members to a few pages in the bill. First, on page 2, line 3, one of the criteria in terms of a definition of infertility can be a person's inability to reproduce without medical intervention, either as a single individual or with the person's partner. And to me, Mr. Chair, that's clearly pointing towards commercial surrogacy. Also, Mr. Chair, if we look on page 3, line 7, any fertility services based on an enrollee's participation in fertility services provided by a third party. That is listed as something that cannot be excluded by a health insurance plan. To me, Mr. Chair, that's very clearly covering commercial surrogacy. And when you look at a letter included in our packets from the Center of Bioethics and Cultural Network, they also very clearly state that the lines 2.3 and 2.4 would expand how we've traditionally thought of infertility as a disease to looking at commercial surrogacy and potentially covering those arrangements. And so the bill language, some of the testimony provided me today, has me concerned that this bill would, in fact, require health insurance companies, would require taxpayers to cover commercial surrogacy. And I have a lot of concerns about that. I think we've seen, and even in Dr. Khan's response, and I'm glad to hear that there is conversations within the medical community on ethical guidelines, but not all providers follow those same ethical guidelines. We've seen that in reporting, including your packet from the Wall Street Journal, where we have individuals placing orders for dozens of children. And so I worry Mr. Chair, that this bill is too broad, and it's not just focused on infertility as a disease and the treatment of it, but it could cover commercial surrogacy as well.
Senator Makewaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Rasmussen, I'll just explain a little bit about how assisted reproductive technology works. So on line 2.3, a person's inability to reproduce without medical intervention, either as a single individual, so this would be single parents by choice who do not have a partner, they can, or do not have a partner, period, or with the person's partner. Almost all surrogates, gestational surrogates, both in the Minnesota and the state and the country, are married, and they all, by definition, have a child already. So by definition, do not experience a diagnosis of infertility. Additionally, over on 3.7, any person who is using donated sperm or donated eggs are receiving that from a third party. So my wife and I, there was a third party, a known donor, involved in the creation of our child. That is why this is included, because you can't say what people can or can't do with their embryos, what they can or can't do with their sperm or their eggs, but it does not cover surrogacy. This bill is just fundamentally, factually not about that. And I again, totally recognize that people have differing opinions about it. It is a very meaty topic that we should have a conversation about as a legislature sometime. This bill is genuinely not about that. It is about the 100 and some thousand Minnesotans who are experiencing infertility in some way, and their insurance won't cover the cost for the treatment.
Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Makewaid. Would you be able to point me to where in the bill it would require a medical diagnosis of infertility?
Senator Makewaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On line 2.16, health plans must provide coverage for the diagnosis and treatment of infertility. And if you want to go to page 1.14, line 1.14, diagnosis of and treatment for infertility means procedures and medications that diagnose and treat infertility and are consistent with established published approved medical practices or professional guidelines from ACOG or the American Society of Reproductive Medicine, some of which Dr. Khan has talked about here. So the criteria.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Makewaid. My reading of what you cited is the coverage mandate. So if we go back to page 2, line 16, it's talking about the diagnosis of and treatment for infertility, but it's not defining or requiring a medical diagnosis of infertility in order for this to be covered. Additionally, when we go back to the page and line you cited on page 1, again, page 1, line 14, diagnosis of and treatment for infertility means procedures and medications to diagnose and treat infertility. And the challenge for me is, so to me, there isn't a clear definition of what medical infertility would be in this bill. But if you go to page 1, line 19, it says infertility means a disease, condition, or status characterized by, and one of those characteristics can be a person's inability to reproduce without medical intervention, either as a single individual or with the person's partner. And Mr. Chair, I read that if you were a single individual who wished to, through commercial surrogacy, obtain a child, that this would now be a covered benefit. And I think that's a clear reading of this language. And in fact, when you go back to page 3, line 7, it also prohibits any health plan from denying coverage to any fertility service based on an enrollee's participation in fertility services provided by or a third party. And so, Mr. Chair, I still struggle to read the bill in the same way the bill author does, given the language that's in front of us. And that has concerns for me on ethical questions and what should be covered in this bill.
Before I go to Senator McQuaid, I'll just reply by saying I'm not entirely convinced that your interpretation of the language covers surrogacy, but it seems clear to me that the intent of the author is not to cover surrogacy. So I do wonder, as this bill goes to another committee, if there could be clarifying language that would satisfy both you and the bill's author. Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will say, there's two kinds of surrogacy. There's gestational surrogacy and there's genetic surrogacy. But what you're talking about, Senator Rasmussen, is somebody going to a law firm or a surrogacy agency. Nothing about health insurance would cover an agency contract for surrogacy. Your health insurance covers your medical treatments. So if you needed to have an egg retrieval, if you needed Clomid, if you needed to do an IUI cycle, if you needed to have your sperm count checked, if you needed to have your fallopian tubes looked at, all of these are medical procedures that your health insurance would cover. Nothing in health insurance would cover any sort of compensation or contract or any treatment for another person that is not you. That health insurance is for yourself. And so even if it was myself and a partner who were experiencing infertility, but I wasn't experiencing infertility, my partner was, their health insurance would cover the infertility diagnosis and treatment, not mine. So I really want to be clear that our insurance coverage, I hope we can be clear on that, is for ourselves. And that is how this bill works. It's for the medical treatment and procedures for individuals.
Senator Frantz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator McQuaid. First of all, thank you for bringing your personal experience to the legislative process. You share a little bit about you and your family. That helps all of us. It also informs us. You're also well informed. I'm a yes on your bill. If you can stand a compliment or two in this committee, Mr. Chair. I also want to say, we talked earlier today about tough choices. I can understand people who think this is a tough choice. I'm a yes, but I respect those who say they have another perspective. That's what we're doing here, a little bit of democracy. That's why they put us on these committees. That's why people elect us. Here comes the compliment. My first year in the Senate, Senator Dames had me in his office and said, I want to talk to you about a bill you want to bring for the liquor bill. We talked it through, and I understood what we were saying, and we came to a conclusion that we liked. I see the same thing for you and Senator Duckworth. Just want to applaud you for taking a minute to talk it through. Just an observation. Your amendment took about 3 minutes. You had talked about it, and I think that's exactly what we're looking for. And Mr. Chair, you stole my thunder because Senator Rasmussen, you have the ability to do the same thing. We talked about that a little bit today, do on the floor. I encourage members to go talk to the person you disagree with. Maybe you can work it out. And if you can't work it out, bring it here. We'll slug out the vote, and we'll see what happens. Thank you for bringing this forward. Thank you for earning a yes vote from someone who's not an expert. Thank you to your testifiers. And that's my pitch for a little teamwork, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Senator Rest.
Mr. Chairman, I request a roll call.
Roll call requested and granted. Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Frantz, for saving me some time and eloquently saying some of what I wanted to. We have to stop doing that in this committee. Mr. Chair, I just have one question, if that's okay. Questions for Dr. Khan. Sir, do you have any idea how many kids are now alive and well as a result of your practice and the work of the folks that you work alongside of?
Dr. Khan.
So personally, I have been involved in more than 2,800 children delivered through IVF. And in the U.S., there's an estimate, growing estimate of more than 12% of the population now being because of IVF, because infertility is an ever-growing state of disease.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Senator Duckworth.
I appreciate that. That I think gives us all some perspective. I think there are a lot of people up here that when they look at this issue and they look at the language of the bill, have really good perspectives, thoughts. You wrestle with some questions, some very large philosophical, ethical type questions. But I bring myself back to what's the intent of the bill? What is the good that it has the potential to accomplish? And the information you just shared reaffirms for me that it's well-intentioned. I think maybe some more work and improvement can be done along the way. But I think there's a lot of folks, whether they're in this committee or in this room, that believe welcoming more kids into this earth is a good thing. So that's all I've got, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to make sure that members are taking a look at some of the testimony that's been provided to this committee and some of the concerns that's been raised by the letters that are including here. And again, this is from the Center for Bioethics. And in their letter, they say, by redefining infertility to include individuals without a diagnosed reproductive pathology, this bill transforms infertility coverage from a treatment of a medical condition into coverage of elective reproductive services. And if you go to the second page of their letter, they have a section that talks about how this language potentially mandates surrogacy coverage. And so I think that's a major concern. I don't think we should pass the bill out of committee today without addressing this and understanding more comprehensively what this bill does. And so I will be a no vote today.
Before we go to closing comments by the author, I just want to offer my own compliments. In the past iterations of this bill, it has been confined to a certain insurance market, and I thought it was important for equity reasons that this be available to the public programs, and you have included that in the bill, which I think earns my yes vote. I would also say you have defrail language in here, which is important and appeals to the responsible members of this committee, or I guess we're all responsible, but the people who worry about health insurance costs on this committee. With that, your closing comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'll re-say that if we ever actually want to have a conversation about surrogacy, I would love to. I had a bill about it, would love to talk about it. But this bill, one of the common themes that you will see on all of the co-authors, both Republican and Democratic members on this bill, we are all millennials with really young children. I don't have the youngest child on this bill. That would go to Senator Duckworth. He's probably getting less sleep than I am. But this is very, very common, particularly in millennials and now in Gen Z. This is something that is affecting our generations tremendously. And there's so many life goals that we are not able to achieve for myriad reasons, but one of them is that we want to start families and we can't afford to. And this would just be an incredible step forward for so many families in the state of Minnesota to pass this bill and get it done this year. And I thank you so much for giving us time to do that and for being inclusive and bringing that forward and wanting that to be how this bill is. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator McQuaid. Members who are on Zoom, can you please turn your cameras on and your microphones on to vote? The clerk will take the roll. So I should say the question is on the motion, by the way, of Senator Wickland. That Senate File 1961 as amended be recommended to pass and refer to the Committee on Health and Human Services. The roll.
Chair Klein?
Yes.
Vice Chair Seeberger?
Yes.
Ranking Member Dames?
No.
Senator Duckworth?
Yes.
Senator Frentz?
Yes.
Senator Green?
No.
Senator Heinzman?
No.
Senator Latz?
Yes.
Senator Rasmussen?
No.
Senator Rest?
No.
Senator Wickland?
Yes.
There being 6 aye votes and 5 nay votes, the motion is adopted. Members, there's no further business before this committee. We are adjourned.